My name is Donna, and the talk that I'm going to give you today is about mindfulness. So the actual title, Mindfulness in Everyday Language to Help You Every Day. And I arrived at that title really because I wanted the whole subject to be as accessible to you as possible, and to dispel any myths really about what it is and how it can help you, because mindfulness, and I do firmly believe that mindfulness can help all of us. And we don't have to practice it particularly formally. You can just in everyday life, it can be a resource or a tool that we can draw from in order to help us live a more connected and whole life, whole way of being, and a less stressful life as well, in a way that we can just cope with whatever is thrown at us, rather than just, sometimes we can just feel as though we're just batting things away or just treading water. Mindfulness can allow us eventually, as we progress along the journey, eventually to welcome whatever arises, not just cope with whatever arises, so we learn to thrive. So a little bit about myself. I've been a yoga teacher for over, since about 2004. Been practicing since I was about 16, so quite a long time now. And I came to mindfulness about 10 years ago. So it was a natural progression from the yoga that I was working with, that whole idea of being attentive and being aware of each moment, the present moment as it arises. But you don't have to be a yoga teacher or practice yoga in order to work with mindfulness. And I firmly believe mindfulness can help anybody and all of us. So the definition of what mindfulness is. So to put it simply, mindfulness is paying attention on purpose, so purposefully paying attention and being awake and paying attention to the present moment without judgment. So within that brings up this whole idea of just allowing things to be. So when we're present, when we're really with the present moment, we're not thinking about what might happen or what happened before or what might happen later. And it's been found really that most of us are just not present for about 70% of our day. So what I mean by that is, when we're making a cup of tea, or if we're making dinner, or if we're doing something that we're quite familiar with, our attention isn't necessarily on that thing, that task that we're working with. Our minds are on something else. Our minds might be thinking of something that happened before, either a minute ago or 2 seconds ago. We might be holding a conversation with somebody else. So we're not just doing one thing, we're doing a multiple of things. Our minds could be thinking about something that happened last year, something that we do keep returning to over and over again, something that we dwell upon. Or we might be thinking about something that might happen in the future that hasn't even happened yet. And if we really become aware of what those thoughts are, we might also find that most of those thoughts are quite negative. Most of those thoughts aren't on things that are particularly happy or made us happy. And that's a human part of being human, because we problem solve. So it's not a problem when I say that those thoughts are negative. We dwell on negative thoughts and we hold negative thoughts because we don't want to repeat those things. If something in the past has happened to us and we didn't like it, we hold those negative thoughts because we don't want to repeat it. But the problem with that can be, as we get older, we get into a habit of holding on to negative thoughts. And negative thoughts, they stop us doing things, they stop us trying out new things. And mindfulness brings us to an awareness of this, and with the practices within mindfulness, it allows us to change habits. So we become aware of negative thoughts, we become aware of where our head is, where our mind is, and we don't necessarily really work at changing it, but we just work at noticing. And in that noticing, subtle shifts take place that do change the way that our brain works. And not necessarily our brain as in this part of the brain or that part of the brain, but the networks between, the part that fire and connect different parts of the brain. And mindfulness has been shown to increase those areas that allow us to focus on what's happening now, rather than dwell upon things that happened before or things that might happen later. And when we are in the present moment, it's been shown that our stress reduces, our heart rate can slow down, respiratory rate slows down, our immune system starts to work a little bit better, we sleep better. So all these things have been found just by practicing a bit of mindfulness every day, a bit of just coming back to the present moment. So what I thought I would do within this talk is just give you a few little practices. And the first one I thought we would kind of go over is, it's called STOP. So S-T-O-P, because mindfulness, when we work with it, and you know, the more you work with it, it's like everything else. If you practice it regularly, if you work with it quite a lot every day, then you will reap the benefits a little bit more. It's like learning to play the piano. If you only have one lesson a week or one lesson every other week or every month, then you're hardly ever going to start to learn any kind of tune. But if you practice just a little bit every day, then gradually you will improve, you know, your skill, and because our brains are plastic, our minds are plastic, and they change depending on what we're thinking and what we're practicing and what we're working with. And mindfulness has been shown to slow us down. So what I mean by that, when we slow down, it's the idea of giving us time to respond, the time to be conscious about what we're doing. So instead of being swept away or just drawn away by our thoughts and thinking or acting without thought, mindfulness gives us a bit of time to slow down and act with purpose, act with attention, act in a way that is the best for us. So the first kind of little practice or idea I just mentioned, stop. So the first letter, S, stands for stop. So if something happens to us, say we have an email or a text or a phone call or a conversation or something is going on, and it kind of takes us, usually maybe a habit might be just to go right back, especially if it's quite a confrontational email or confrontational conversation. We might have that habit of just going right back. Just practicing this little thing, the idea of stop. So we stop, we just notice, so we stop, and we just allow everything just to be as it is for a few moments. And then T, the next one, ST, we take a breath. So we consciously breathe. And as soon as we take our attention to our breathing, subtle shifts start to take place. We breathe anyway. You don't need anybody like me or anybody else to tell you how to breathe. You know how to breathe. The idea within mindfulness is that you do just begin to understand your breathing. You begin to understand how it is. So when we take our attention to our breathing, especially if we've been taken aback by something or something has taken us by surprise, chances are we're going to feel maybe a bit of a higher respiratory rate. Our breathing might be up here. We might feel our heart rate. We might be able to hear our heart beating. So by stopping, taking a breath, we just become aware of what's happening in our body. Now, as soon as we take our attention to our breathing, something changes within the nervous system. So we can have habits of just being aligned, I suppose, to the sympathetic nervous system. So that's the part of the nervous system that releases adrenaline, releases cortisol, and it's that part of the nervous system, the fight or flight response, that makes us run away from danger. And that response, if we become into a habit of being with that part of the nervous system, we have the same responses in our body. If someone shouts at us, or we have a bit of an altercation on the road when we're driving, we can have the same response in our body as if we were going to be attacked by a lion, which is crazy, but it's quite a primitive primal instinct within us, the sympathetic nervous system. As soon as we take our attention to our breathing, we can break that habit and come away from the sympathetic nervous system and into the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, this part of the nervous system slows us down. It releases those hormones or chemicals that counteract adrenaline and cortisol and allow the heart rate to slow down, allow the respiratory rate to settle, allow the digestive system to rest. And you know that if we're stressed or if something's happening to us, if you really take your attention to your body, you will feel all that churning deep inside your belly. So as soon as you take your attention to your breathing, all these things might not stop, they might not stop, but you become aware of them, and you're just taking that initial step in order to shift it, to change perspective a little bit. So we take a breath, so ST, and then the next letter O, we observe. So all those things that I've been talking about, we observe those changes in our body. We observe what's happening. So if you've received an email or a text or a phone or something's happening, a conversation, allowing yourself to just stop, take a breath, observe. It just gives you, might just be a split second or a couple of seconds, just a bit of time within yourself before you decide to, last letter, P, proceed. So all these things, so you stop, you take a breath, you observe what's going on in your body, and then you decide what's the best course of action. So there's a conscious decision to proceed, to respond, or just leave it alone. So ultimately, all of these things are about you finding health for you. So if you become angry, and if you want to shout back, if you decide to shout back, then that's what you've decided, but it's a conscious decision. But ultimately, as we work with these practices more and more and more, we've become very, 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 very aware that anger, resentment, and all those kind of emotions, quite strong emotions, the only person that gets damaged by those is yourself. So we're not looking to kind of, just let anybody get away with it, people can do what they like to me. It isn't like that at all. What we learn to do is look after ourselves, look after our own health. And when we look after our own health, that just, it shines forth, and everybody else benefits from that as well. And it's that whole idea as well, that if you, when you work with these practices, and you learn not to give, I suppose, if someone's coming at you in a way, or someone's doing something that you don't agree with and you want to shout back at them, you just learn in a way to accept in a sense that is healthy for you. It doesn't mean that things are right, it doesn't mean anything of the sort, it just means that you've accepted things as they are. Mindfulness gives us this whole idea that everything goes on around us, and we often cannot change them, but the only thing that we can do is change our responses and allow ourselves to accept and be tolerant and maybe just a bit more patient with what's going on around. And in that way we learn to treat ourselves with kindness as well as compassion and love. And those kind of emotions, they're not depleted. The more you give yourself these things, the more they come out of you. And they can't be drained. Those kind of emotions are like a fountain. They just are ever ongoing, replenished. So that's the first little practice that we can work with or be aware of, this whole idea of stop, S-T-O-P. And that brings us, probably maybe a bit apparent from that brings us into contact with our body. And one of the first foundations of mindfulness is to be aware of our body. So the second practice that I thought we would work with today is just this idea of, again, taking a bit of space for yourself. So at any time of the day, it can be if something is happening to you and you just need to come away from it for a few moments, or it can be more of a formal thing. So you can get up in the morning or last thing at night, it might help you sleep. So this one, we become aware of our body first of all, and then our breathing, and then a sense of all of us. So I'll talk you through it. So it is a practice. So if it's okay, are you all sitting? So we're sitting on a chair, and you don't have to practice mindfulness sitting up. You can practice mindfulness lying down, you can be standing up, you can be sitting on the floor. It's that whole idea as well that you don't reach any kind of goal or attain anything if you're in a certain position. The most important thing is that you are comfortable and you're aware of your comfort and you're aware of how you are. So if we're sitting on a chair, so just shift around a little bit so you make sure you can kind of spend a bit of time in stillness, but obviously if you need to move, then you move. Mindfulness isn't about putting up with or coping with discomfort. It's certainly not about just always making ourselves comfortable or being aware, but it's being aware of what is. So we're not trying to avoid anything, we're just trying to notice. So if it's okay, and hopefully your feet are resting on the floor, so you have a sense of the whole of your foot resting on the floor. So you might want to move a little bit closer towards the edge of the chair or a little bit back, but just finding a place where you can sit, where your spine is upright, and your hands just resting on your lap, palms facing down if it's okay, your hand resting on my thighs really. And then take your gaze down, and you can drop your chin, and just being aware of the weight of your head, and your gaze is down towards your lap. Then if it's okay, just close your eyes. And when you close your eyes, really being aware of the weight of your head. And then ever so carefully, just lift your head. So your chin is parallel to your thighs. And just imagine the very crown of your head as if there's an invisible cord, just lifting the crown of the head right up through towards the ceiling. And let your shoulders just drop, whatever that means to you. And then just taking your attention down through to your feet and just feeling the connection of your feet on the floor. Do you have that strong sense of being connected to the ground, to the earth, to beneath? And then being aware of your hands resting on your legs, the parts of your legs. And just lightly push down into your hands, lightly push down into your feet. And now just feel the echoes of that movement throughout the whole of your body. Breathe in. And as you breathe out, let go. But you still have that connection. Soles of the feet, palms of the hands, fingers, and the wrists, and the thumbs. Being aware of the weight of your arms and the weight of your shoulders. And just spending a few moments just being aware of how your body feels right now. And you might, if it's okay, just investigating how it feels right now in your body. And what is your experience of your body right now? Is it comfortable? Are there parts that you wish could be different? Are there other parts that feel just quite fine? And what thoughts are inside your head? And what feelings are inside your body? And what sensations are there? And can you just work with the thought that you're not trying to change anything, we're just trying to notice what we feel in our body right now. And it might just be that feeling of weight down through the hands or warmth. It might be a feeling of weight down through the feet or the seat on the chair. There might be areas of discomfort, or there might be something else. But what is your experience right now? So we acknowledge the fullness of what you feel, and even those aspects of the things that we don't necessarily want. And now gently draw your attention to your breathing. And if you're not used to noticing your breath, just being careful and just knowing that you're not trying to change your breathing. You're not trying to make it different. We're just working and practicing at noticing. And as you take your attention to your breathing, you might notice quite quickly that your mind wanders away. And that isn't a problem. Our minds do wander. It's what makes us who we are. And in the act of noticing and bringing your attention back to your breathing, subtle shifts, changes within our mind or within our brain take place. So minds wandering aren't a problem. They're just part of the practice. And you bring your attention back to the in-breath and the out-breath. And your breath acts as an anchor to bring you back to the present moment. And that's simply because we can't breathe in the past and we can't breathe in the future. You only breathe now. And now just for the final part of the practice, just expand your field of awareness beyond your breath. Just so that it includes a whole sense of you, your body, your position, even your facial expression, the area between your brows and around your mouth. And if it's alright, just saying to yourself, I'm okay. Whatever is happening, whatever I feel, is here. All I'm trying to do is feel this moment, this breath, this body, this whole sense of me. And then just gently, coming out of the practice, just drop your chin. Open your eyes downwards into your lap. Know where you are. Feel the connection of your hands on your thighs, your feet on the floor. And just gently, carefully lifting your gaze when you're ready and coming back to the room. So it's always important after, there's quite a relatively short practice, but it's always important after to know how you feel, to know what's happening in your body, what's happening in your thoughts. So that was 2 short practicing. The first one, stop, S-T-O-P, and then just a short breathing practice that allows us to take in the whole of our body. Just the whole idea that mindfulness begins with a connection to our body. And from there we have a sense of how we feel and what's happening around us. And that gives us that idea, that small pause, that small space in order to react, respond, or whatever we decide to do. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.